Unlocking Alien Closets by Leah Haley. This is, again, I'm going to combine a couple of books in this review because I did a quick count earlier of my overall book collection, and I think a rough estimate of my books thus far, my total book count, just again, very rough count, I think is around 2,600 books. So obviously there's some like encyclopedia sets that I'm not going to go through every single one, but my goal here is to hit the high points and at least cover why some of these books exist as part of my collection. Because again, I think all of this, everything in my collection has a reason for being there. Every now and then I'll have a purging of some excess books in my library that just have absolutely no reason to be cluttering up the extra shelf space. But from time to time, there are books I have that are, even though they may present a theory or a viewpoint that I completely disagree with, I like to have those books around, if for no other reason than to as supporting evidence for something else, or as an example of disinformation or something like that. So, and as I come across those books, I will try to explain them as such. But back to the review at hand. This is Unlocking Alien Closets by Leah Haley, and Lost Was the Key, also by Leah Haley. Leah Haley first wrote Lost Was the Key, and I believe this came out in 93. Let me just double check here. Yep, 1993. And then I want to say that this one came out somewhere around 10 years later. Yep, 2003. So 1993, 2003. This is a fascinating case that, in my opinion, is kind of a supporting case of Martin Cannon's theory put forth in the Controllers of the idea that some alien abductions are possibly an exercise in brainwashing and or mind control activity. And that, oddly enough, that is what the author here, Leah Haley, that is the conclusion she comes to. When she first wrote Lost Was the Key, she really believed in the alien phenomenon, believed that she was abducted by aliens multiple times, tells that account in the course of this book, Lost Was the Key. Over the course of the next 10 years, she came to a very different conclusion, that she started looking into her abductions from a very different viewpoint and came to the disturbing conclusion that these were actually what has been termed as MILABs or MILABs or whatever, which is military abductions. And with an element of mind control in there. There was some kind of brainwashing and stuff like that going on. But seeing that progression over the course of two books is very eye-opening, and this is a very fascinating case study. And I think it speaks well of Leah Haley that she was able to make that determination in spite of all of the evidence that she had lived through firsthand. To see all of that firsthand, come to the conclusion, to be convinced that you were abducted by aliens, and then back up and reassess that as a very terrestrial military event, I think takes extreme courage, especially when you put your account in print. So this follow-up is really good. It tells her personal story, a lot of the events in her personal life, and all of the problems that were caused by the fallout from her alien abduction scenario. And again, just to back up on the alien front, personally, I consider myself an alien agnostic. I have no proof one way or the other. My personal opinion, though, I lean more towards the idea that a lot of the alien phenomenon is a psychological warfare event more so than a alien event. And I think that is well supported in a lot of the documentation of a lot of the declassified CIA documents that are a lot of times heavily redacted, point towards the use of UFOs and aliens as a means of psychological warfare. And I personally think that that is a powerful tool to steer the mass consciousness, to kind of steer the popular belief system through new myth making. And that's kind of where Leah Haley arrives. She doesn't get into so much of the why is this happening as much as how is this happening. And she has some really good pictures and supporting evidence here of where she shows this beach she was taken to, where she talks about these other military guys that kind of inserted themselves in her life and started kind of being her handlers. And that's all really interesting. Photographs of helicopters, which and marks on her body. But the real interesting thing is some of the non-lethal weaponry that she uncovers that matches some of the markings that she found on her body. Stun devices like this that she recalled being, having these memories of being knocked out and then being aboard a spacecraft and that sort of thing. But this is a fascinating case in that, again, you have an eyewitness that progresses from believing they were abducted by aliens to walking that back to reconsidering all of this. And again, this is someone who had established herself in the UFO community as an abductee, and then coming to realize, wait a second, this whole abduction phenomenon may be a very different animal than what we think it is. So really good book. If you were to just get one of these, I would recommend the follow-up, because obviously this is the most up-to-date. But I think I actually read this one first and then went back and read this just because I wanted to hear her account in her original wording and then see how it progressed to this. So really interesting account. And her husband also wrote a book about aliens, and it's interesting, his take, and I think he has since passed away, but his take was, if I remember right, that he believed that this was an alien or a human, an interdimensional phenomenon where humans from the future were visiting the past. So make of that what you will. I'll see if I can get around to covering his book as well. But Leah Haley, Unlocking Alien Closets, Abductions, Mind Control, and Spirituality. Great book. Again, I really think in the bigger picture, this is a really important piece of the puzzle of the current state of the art of mind control and military intelligence, CIA, NSA, kind of myth making and shaping the public consciousness away from a more traditional spiritual worldview. And I think that's something to bear in mind, that there are people that are actively involved, actively engaged in doing that, in shaping that, the people's worldviews in a way that is 100% fabricated. So there you go. Unlocking Alien Closets and Lost Was the Key by Leah Haley.